Good day, guys. So today we are given this question here that is based on trig expressions, right? So on trig, good day, guys. So today we are given this question here that is based on trigonometry. So now it says that if cos 23 degrees is equal to p, express the following in terms of p without using a calculator, right? So it says that we have to express the following in terms of p. We can see that we are given here this trig equation here. So now we know that now we are going to use the diagram. So what are the clues? We have to write this in terms of p. You don't have to use a calculator. Then we are given our trig equation in this form. So now we know that we have to draw a right angle triangle, right? So but then the very first thing that you have to do before we draw a right angle triangle, remember that cos 23 degrees is equals to p. These can also be written in this form. This can also be written in the form of, let me just write it here, the form of cos 23 degrees is equal to p over 1. This is how this can be written. Actually, it is more helpful to us if it's written in this form. So now let's have a look at this. We now know that we have to draw a right angle triangle. So let's draw our right angle triangle. So now we know that we are going to have that 23-degree angle here. Then this is how you'd use it. Then we are having cos of 23 degrees, which is equal to p over 1. Then we know that cos is actually what? It's actually the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. So it means that the value of the adjacent here, the adjacent side, it's p. Then the value of the hypotenuse in this case here is going to be 1, right? So now this is what we are having here. So now we have to find the missing angle, and also that we have to find what? We have to find the opposite side, because that's the side that it is missing. So we find the missing side, we also find the missing angle. So now how do we find this missing angle here? We are going to use angles in a triangle. So we are going to say 180 minus 90 minus 23. So what are we going to get from that? We are going to get 67, right? So now to find this side here, to find this side, we can just label it as y for now. Then we are going to use the theorem of Pythagoras to actually find this one here. So we are going to say r squared is equal to r, which is our hypotenuse, then x being our adjacent side relatively to the 23 degrees, then we say y squared here. So now remember, what is the value of r? The value of r in this case is 1. So we say 1 squared. The value of x in this case is p, so we are going to have p squared. Then the value of y we don't have, that's what we are trying to calculate. Then we are going to have 1 here. Then we are going to have p squared here. Then we are going to have y squared. Then from this one here, we know that we have to transpose this p squared to the left hand side. So what's this going to give us? This is going to actually give us y squared is equals to 1 minus p squared. Now remember, we want to solve or try and find the value of y, not y squared. So therefore we are going to take the square root both sides. Then this is going to leave us with what? The square root of 1 minus p squared, right? So now we know that this side here, this side or y here, is actually equals to 1 minus p, square root of 1 minus p squared. So now let's now answer our first question. So the very first thing that we have to answer here, they say that we have to determine this value of cos of, or write this in terms of p, I mean. So we have cos of 203 degrees. Then remember, when we have a question that is greater, like this, greater than 90, you should always write it in the simplest form. So this is the same as cos of what? Cos of, what do we use in order to actually reduce this angle? We are going to use our reduction formulas. So 203 is on the third quadrant, right? So since 203 is on the third quadrant, what is the reduction formula on the third quadrant, right? So we are going to use 180 plus, right? So now we say 203 minus 180, this is going to give us 23 degrees, right? So that's what we're having there. Then 180 plus, we know that we are on the third quadrant, right? We know that we are on the third quadrant. Then now, how is cos on the third quadrant? Cos is actually negative on the third quadrant, so we are going to have negative cos 23 degrees. Right, now what do you see from this? We are having this angle here of 23 degrees. Do we have that angle on the diagram? Yes, we actually have that angle on the diagram. So now it means that for this part here, we are going to use our diagram to actually find the value, right? So now let's do that. So what is cos 23 according to the diagram? Cos 23, it's actually equals to p over 1. Remember, cos 23, it's actually equals to adjacent over the hypotenuse, so that this will now simplified into negative p, right? So that's what we have for the first one here. Now our second question here, we have to find the value of 293 in terms of p. Sine of 293, so sine of 293. Then how can we do that? First, look at this angle, it's not in its simplest form. Then how can we write it in the most simplest form? Are going to use our reduction formulas. So right, so let's now simplify this. We're going to have sine here of, then 293, it's on the fourth quadrant, right? So since it's on the fourth quadrant, how do we use or reduce angles on the fourth quadrant? So we say 360 minus, right? So when we say 360 degrees minus 293, we get 67, right? So now we know now that we are on the fourth quadrant, right? So since we are on the fourth quadrant, now how is sine on the fourth quadrant? Sine, it's actually negative on the fourth quadrant, so we are going to have negative sine. Then what are we going to write here? We are going to have a 67 degree angle here. So now, according to the diagram, what are we going to do now to actually simplify this? We are going to have negative, then we are going to use our diagram to actually now answer this question. What is sine 67 according to the diagram? Sine 67, remember, we are referring to this angle here. What is sine 67? It's opposite over hypotenuse. What is the opposite now? The opposite is p, the hypotenuse it's 1. So we are going to have p over 1. So we have p over 1, right? So the other thing that we are going to have, that it is that negative times a positive is going to be a negative. So we know that you are going to get a negative answer. Then p over 1 is going to be p. So that's how we work with this one. So now we rely on the diagram to actually now write this. So it means that sine of 293 in terms of p is the same as negative p.